I would like to say something else regarding the peace process. And it has to do with what was put forth in the recent Asian summit in Vladivostok by the Russian government, by Vladimir Putin. What was envisaged by the Russians, and again, this geopolitics and the economic interests. Can we have the map of Northeast Asia, please? Yeah.
Lynn will come bring it. Fourth time.
It's, yeah. What is envisaged, first of all, let's wait until we get the map because it's easier for me to explain. La carte.
My bad, multitasking.
You have the map of?
Korea.
Yeah, the regional map.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm scrolling.
I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah, I remember it's up here.
Okay. Now, first of all, from the point of view of the US military agenda and its global war plans, which have been fairly well understood. It's the globalization of war. North Korea is not the ultimate target. North Korea is a stepping stone. North Korea is a buffer state. And the ultimate target is Russia and China. Now you look at the geography of this region where US hegemony is threatened. And it's very seriously threatened because, first of all, there's no territorial base, maybe outside Okinawa. And what would happen if the Putin plan, which is ultimately an economic plan, were adopted, implying the trade and investment integration of South Korea, North Korea, China, and the eastern tip of the sorry, not the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation, okay? I get stuck in history occasionally. And Vladivostok is the regional capital. So that what is proposed is essentially to integrate the Korean Peninsula into the structures of trade and investment which are already there. China's Belt and Road, which is a major project which extends all the way to Afghanistan. That's also one of the reasons why the United States has sent troops to Afghanistan, because the Chinese want to build a road from the Xinjiang-Uyghur Autonomous Region right through there's a small passageway into Afghanistan, reinstating the roads which existed during the earlier periods of the Silk Road, so that project is there. I just returned from Gansu province, right on the border with Xinjiang, where all this infrastructure is now being envisaged. And what this signifies is that essentially the United States of America would be literally excluded from this region altogether. And that, of course, that would depend on Japan, whether Japan would probably join in. But what it also implies, and that's also very crucial, that a reunification of Korea would lead to the formation of a very powerful nation state with scientific, technological, military capabilities. It would be a country of almost 80 million people, 50 to 55 million in the south, 25 million in the north. And so this is not something which the United States wants to contemplate at this particular juncture. And at the same time, they have stated in military documents that if they were to accept the reunification of the two Koreas, they would want to station troops in North Korea. Okay? So that is the logic. Now, the problem there, and I'll conclude on that. And when I say that we're at a dangerous crossroads, the United States cannot win a conventional war in that region or in any other regions of the world. Okay? And they know that. Okay? They know it. But they have chosen other methods of waging warfare. Economic sanctions, regime change, the global war on terrorism, sending in jihadist mercenaries. That applies more to the Middle East, but other regions of the world as well. And non-conventional weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, and climatic warfare, environmental modification techniques. Now, those are well documented that they are operational because it's confirmed by the US Air Force. Now, I've been often pointed at spreading rumors, but I quote official documents, and the official documents is that weather warfare is fully operational, and it has been fully operational since the mid-90s. But that's another topic. But what I'm saying is that we're at a dangerous crossroads because the United States has a certain hegemony in military affairs, but it is sliding in terms of its economic capabilities to control vast areas of the world, and it is also being confronted with cross-cutting alliances, where some of its most faithful proxy states, such as Pakistan, is now trading with China, is a member of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, and so is India. And then you have disruptions in alliances. Turkey is now has an alliance of convenience with Iran. Turkey is scrapped. Turkey is now using the Russian air defense system, the S-400, while being a NATO member state, which is totally contradictory because the air defense system of of NATO, the United States, and Israel is fully integrated. It's the same air defense system, and it's coordinated out of U.S. Strategic Command, Nebraska, okay? So that they have integrated air defense systems, they collaborate, and then if one of their member states, such as Turkey, which is a heavyweight in NATO from the point of view of conventional forces, decides to purchase at a high cost the S-400, that means that, in effect, this would be called a rogue element within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, okay? Maybe Trump will use some other words to describe them. But it is a very, these changes have been pending for quite some time, but it seems that in the last year, these new alliances have led to major disruptions in the thrust of U.S. foreign policy and its military agenda. As far as Canada is concerned, I think we have to confront our Minister of Foreign Affairs. First of all, the mediocrity of her initiative and her failure to understand international diplomacy and her failure to understand history. And clearly this perspective is dictated by Washington. It's a copy and paste. We don't need to be surprised at that, but the fact of the matter is that they are acting in the name of the Canadian people. And what transpires from her statements is that she supports fire and fury quite openly, because the threats are there, and now they want to come up with a naval blockade and so on. And that is directed against a country which has never threatened Canada. Well, the only country which has threatened Canada is the United States, okay? And they had a plan to invade us in the 1920s and 30s, which was scrapped in 1938, okay? And people don't know about that. And then, of course, there was another plan in 1867. That was an annexation plan. But the one in the 1930s was an actual military plan to come and invade Canada. So there we are. I'd like to say something about the follow-up, and I think this is something which is going to be debated. I think that this meeting is also going to be historic because it brings together, I think, the concrete possibility of creating a mobilization against war and occupation nationwide. It's not something which would sit in Vancouver. It's going to extend. And there are other collectives in Ontario, in Manitoba, and other parts in Saskatchewan, and other parts in the Maritimes, not in Montreal, unfortunately, which will follow suit. But we cannot necessarily involve the existing anti-war collectives. Maybe some. Not to say that we cut off from the existing institutions, no. But we have to redefine the anti-war movement. And we can't redefine the anti-war movement when some of our colleagues say we're supporting regime change in Syria. Okay? Those are the words of Noam Chomsky, incidentally. And everybody follows Noam Chomsky like a pack of sheep. I mean, if you read his statements, it's pretty horrendous statements on how to do it. On how to do it from a military standpoint, to induce them to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. So we have to, and we cannot have anti-war movements which are funded by Wall Street or by Lockheed Martin, okay? There's a lot of funding, and the funding arrangements. The Ford Foundation funds the World Social Forum, right from the beginning. The Ford Foundation is linked to the CIA. Everybody knows that. But nonetheless, they accept the funding. And now there's still a clearinghouse of funding agencies which fund progressive organizations, ultimately with a view to controlling them. And so any kind of anti-war movement, Canadian anti-war movement, which is genuine in its principles and intents, has to be self-funded and cannot accept. We can't ask those who are the protagonists of war to actually fund our activities. But that happens. Thank you very much.